Every breakfast throws away something your tomatoes desperately need. Not tomorrow, not months from now, this season. Yet millions of gardeners crush eggshells, bury them beside plants, and unknowingly wait years for results that never arrive when they need them most. Meanwhile, generations of natural growers discovered a simple way to unlock that same calcium using nothing more than a kitchen jar and one inexpensive ingredient. Modern chemistry now explains exactly why it works. Before you bury another eggshell, you need to understand why blossom end rot isn't always caused by a lack of calcium, why healthy-looking soil can still produce calcium-starved fruit, and why one forgotten preparation changes the entire story. By the end of this video, you'll know how to turn yesterday's breakfast into one of the most useful homemade calcium amendments for your garden, and why the real secret has never been the eggshell itself. Your tomatoes are not asking for more fertilizer. They are asking for something far more specific. Every summer, thousands of gardeners watch beautiful green tomatoes suddenly develop dark sunken patches across the bottom. Peppers wrinkle before they mature. Squash begins perfectly, then collapses before harvest. The first instinct is always the same. Buy another fertilizer. Buy another calcium supplement. Buy another bottle promising bigger harvests. Yet many gardens already contain plenty of calcium. The real mystery is why the plant cannot use it when it matters most. Imagine standing in your garden after weeks of careful watering. The vines are taller than ever. Flowers cover every branch. Tiny fruit begins forming. Everything suggests a record harvest is coming. Then almost overnight, the first tomato develops a black scar. A few days later, another follows. Soon, half the fruit becomes unusable. You blame the weather, maybe the fertilizer, maybe the variety. But beneath the surface, an invisible struggle has been unfolding since the day you planted that seedling. Calcium moves differently from almost every other major nutrient. Nitrogen travels easily through the plant. Potassium moves where it is needed. Calcium is stubborn. Once it becomes part of a cell wall, it rarely moves again. New growth depends on a constant supply arriving through fresh water flowing upward from the roots. Interrupt that flow through inconsistent watering, damaged roots, or poor calcium availability, and the newest tissues suffer first. The fruit literally runs out of the building blocks needed to construct strong cells. Long before bottled fertilizers filled garden centers, people noticed this pattern without understanding the chemistry. Across farming communities in East Asia, kitchen waste rarely became garbage. Eggshells, shells from rivers and seas, and mineral-rich ashes were returned to the land. Over generations, growers discovered that simply throwing whole eggshells into the soil produced disappointing results. The shells remained visible months later, almost unchanged. Nature was preserving one of its strongest materials. Modern science explains why. Nearly 95% of an eggshell consists of calcium carbonate, the same mineral found in limestone. That mineral is incredibly stable. It protects developing chicks by resisting weather, moisture, and microbial attack. Those same protective properties make whole eggshells slow to release calcium into garden soil. Crushed shells decompose faster because they expose more surface area, but even then, the process can take many months or even years depending on soil biology, moisture, and particle size. For gardeners hoping to rescue this season's tomatoes, waiting years is hardly a solution. This realization led traditional growers toward a different question. Instead of asking how to bury eggshells, they asked how to unlock them. The answer emerged through careful observation rather than expensive laboratories. Vinegar, produced for centuries through natural fermentation, reacted dramatically when poured over crushed shells. Bubbles appeared immediately. Foam rose inside clay jars. The shells slowly dissolved. What looked like simple bubbling was actually chemistry at work. The mild acid in vinegar was reacting with calcium carbonate, releasing carbon dioxide while forming calcium acetate, a much more soluble calcium compound than the original shell. The transformation did not create magic fertilizer. It simply changed the physical form of the calcium, making it easier to distribute and incorporate into the soil. Today, soil chemists describe the same reaction using equations. Traditional growers described it using experience. Both arrived at the same conclusion. The shell had not become more nutritious. It had become more accessible. That distinction changes everything. Many gardeners spend years believing eggshells failed because they lacked calcium. In reality, they failed because timing mattered. Whole shells slowly feed future soil. Prepared calcium solutions can become available much sooner. Both have value. They simply serve different purposes. The remarkable part is that this forgotten kitchen practice survived not because someone marketed it, but because it continued working across generations. It required no factory, no patented formula, and no specialized equipment. Just breakfast leftovers, vinegar, patience, and an understanding that nature often hides its greatest efficiencies inside the simplest materials. In the next part, we will build the complete preparation step by step, explain why concentration matters, how to apply it safely, what mistakes reduce its effectiveness, and how to combine it with one overlooked gardening habit that helps calcium reach developing fruit when plants need it most. The preparation itself is surprisingly simple, but every small detail influences the final result. This is not because the process is delicate, it is because chemistry rewards precision. The first step begins with clean eggshells. After using your eggs, rinse the shells thoroughly to remove any remaining egg white. Residual proteins can spoil during storage and create unpleasant odors. Allow the shells to dry completely. Some gardeners leave them in sunlight for a day. Others place them in a warm oven for a few minutes after baking. The goal is not to cook the shells. The goal is simply to remove moisture and make them brittle enough to crush easily. Now comes the step that most people underestimate. Crush the shells as finely as possible. You can use a mortar and pestle, a coffee grinder reserved for garden use, or even roll over them with a glass bottle inside a cloth bag. The smaller the particles become, the greater the total surface area exposed to the vinegar. Imagine dropping a solid block of sugar into water compared to stirring in powdered sugar. Both contain the same material, yet one disappears dramatically faster because every tiny particle touches the liquid. Eggshells behave in exactly the same way. Finely crushed shells react more completely, producing a cleaner and more efficient calcium solution. Place the crushed shells into a clean glass jar. Avoid metal containers because vinegar is acidic and may react with certain metals over time. Slowly pour ordinary white vinegar over the shells until they are fully submerged. Within seconds, the jar comes alive. Tiny bubbles race upward. Foam begins forming across the surface. The mixture almost seems to breathe. What you are watching is carbon dioxide escaping as the acid reacts with calcium carbonate. It is the visible sign that the shells are transforming into a more soluble calcium compound. This bubbling can continue for hours and sometimes much longer, depending on particle size and the amount of vinegar used. Do not rush the process. Allow the reaction to continue until the vigorous bubbling has largely stopped. Many traditional growers leave the mixture for several days, while others allow a full week. During that time, more of the shell gradually dissolves into the liquid. The solution becomes increasingly rich in dissolved calcium, while small pieces of shell may remain at the bottom. That is perfectly normal. Complete dissolution is not required for the preparation to be useful. Here is where many homemade recipes become confusing. Some people recommend pouring this concentrated solution directly onto plants. Resist that temptation. The vinegar itself remains acidic, and concentrated solutions are stronger than young roots need. Traditional preparations are normally diluted before application. A common approach is mixing roughly 1 teaspoon of the finished calcium solution into a gallon of water. Although experienced growers often adjust dilution based on crop type, soil condition, and previous experience, the objective is not overwhelming the plant with calcium. The objective is providing a gentle, available source while maintaining healthy soil chemistry. But calcium alone never tells the whole story. Imagine trying to deliver building bricks to a construction site where every road is blocked. The bricks exist, the workers exist, the construction still stops because transportation has failed. Calcium behaves similarly inside plants. It travels primarily through water moving upward from the roots. If watering becomes inconsistent, if roots are damaged, or if drought interrupts the plant's water flow, calcium struggles to reach developing fruit regardless of how much exists in the soil. This explains one of gardening's greatest frustrations. A soil test may show adequate calcium, while blossom end rot still appears. The issue is often movement rather than supply. That is why experienced growers focus on consistency. They water deeply instead of lightly sprinkling the surface every afternoon. Deep watering encourages roots to explore lower soil layers, where moisture remains more stable. Mulch reduces evaporation, helping maintain even soil moisture between watering cycles. Healthy root systems transport water more efficiently, and water transports calcium. Suddenly, several gardening practices that seem unrelated begin working together toward the same objective. There is another hidden layer almost nobody discusses. Soil biology quietly influences calcium availability every day. Beneficial microorganisms release organic acids that help weather minerals naturally present in the soil. Earthworms improve soil structure, allowing water to move more evenly. Organic matter increases the soil's ability to retain both moisture and dissolve nutrients. Calcium availability is not determined by one ingredient alone. It emerges from an entire living ecosystem working beneath the surface. Now, let us build an even stronger system using the prepared eggshell solution. Instead of treating it as an emergency rescue, think of it as one piece of a seasonal routine. Apply the diluted solution during periods of active growth, particularly before heavy fruit production begins. Combine it with regular watering habits and a layer of organic mulch. Healthy plants receiving steady moisture are far more likely to move calcium where it is needed than stressed plants swinging between drought and flooding. One common mistake deserves special attention. More is not automatically better. Excessive calcium can interfere with the uptake of other nutrients under certain conditions. Gardening is rarely about maximizing one element. It is about maintaining balance. Healthy plants require nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, sulfur, and dozens of micronutrients alongside calcium. No homemade amendment replaces complete soil management. The eggshell preparation simply addresses one important piece of a much larger biological puzzle. Modern research reinforces this balanced perspective. Studies continue demonstrating calcium's critical role in maintaining strong cell walls, supporting membrane stability, and improving overall fruit quality. Researchers also emphasize that calcium-related disorders are influenced by irrigation practices, environmental stress, root health, and nutrient interactions. In other words, the homemade solution works best when paired with healthy gardening fundamentals rather than used as a miracle cure. Perhaps the greatest lesson hidden inside this forgotten method is philosophical rather than chemical. It reminds us that many valuable resources already exist within our homes. Every breakfast quietly produces material capable of contributing to healthier soil instead of filling another trash bag. Previous generations understood this instinctively because waste carried value. Modern convenience sometimes teaches the opposite. Yet every eggshell offers another opportunity to return minerals back into the growing cycle rather than breaking it. In the final part, we will take this one step further. You will learn how to verify whether your plants are actually benefiting, how to recognize the earliest visual signs of improving calcium nutrition, which crops respond most strongly to this method, and why one overlooked companion practice may have an even greater influence on blossom and rot than calcium itself. By the end, you will understand not only how to prepare this traditional amendment, but how to fit it into a complete system that strengthens your garden season after season. By now you understand something that changes the way you look at both your kitchen and your garden. Eggshells are not worthless waste. They are simply locked minerals waiting for the right conditions. But every successful gardener eventually asks the same question. How do I know this is actually working? Fortunately, plants are remarkably honest. They reveal their progress long before harvest if you know where to look. Forget the fruit for a moment. Look at the newest growth. Calcium is used most heavily in rapidly developing tissues because every new cell requires strong walls before it can expand. When calcium delivery improves, the first signs often appear in the youngest leaves. They emerge flatter, firmer, and more symmetrical. New stems feel sturdier. Growing tips continue extending without distortion. These subtle changes usually appear before any difference becomes obvious in the fruit itself. Healthy plants always communicate quietly before they celebrate loudly. Now shift your attention to tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and squash. These crops move enormous amounts of water during fruit production. As temperatures climb, they rely on a constant stream of moisture, carrying dissolved calcium upward through the plant. If watering becomes inconsistent, calcium movement slows almost immediately. This explains why two neighboring gardens receiving the same soil amendment often produce completely different results. One gardener waters deeply and consistently. The other alternates between drought and flooding. The first harvests healthy fruit. The second blames calcium when the real problem was water movement all along. This brings us to one of the most overlooked practices in home gardening: mulching. Many people see mulch as nothing more than weed control. In reality, mulch performs a far more important job. It shields the soil from direct sunlight, slows evaporation, moderates temperature swings, and keeps moisture levels remarkably stable. Stable moisture means steadier water movement. Steadier water movement means more reliable calcium transport. Suddenly, the eggshell solution, consistent watering, and mulch stop looking like separate techniques. They become one coordinated system. Imagine two identical tomato plants. Both receive the same calcium preparation. One grows in bare soil exposed to hot afternoon sun. The other grows beneath 2 inches of organic mulch. After several weeks, the mulched plant often experiences far fewer moisture fluctuations because the root zone remains cooler and more consistent. The calcium you prepared so carefully now has a better opportunity to reach developing fruit exactly when those cells are forming. The amendment did not become more powerful. The environment became more supportive. There is another reason experienced growers rarely chase quick fixes. Healthy soil improves every season when treated well. Organic matter accumulates. Earthworm populations increase. Microbial communities become more diverse. Soil structure gradually improves until roots move more freely and water penetrates more evenly. Every year, the system becomes slightly stronger than the year before. This is how truly productive gardens are built, not through dramatic seasonal interventions, but through hundreds of small biological improvements, quietly stacking together over time. If you want to evaluate your progress scientifically, keep a simple garden notebook. Record when you apply the diluted eggshell solution. Record watering patterns. Record weather extremes. Then compare blossom end rot, fruit quality, and overall plant vigor with previous seasons. Small observations become powerful evidence when collected consistently. Gardening has always rewarded those who pay attention. One question appears almost every time eggshells are discussed: can they replace every commercial calcium product? The honest answer is no. Different soils present different challenges. Severely deficient soils may require additional amendments based on soil testing. Commercial calcium products have legitimate uses in certain situations. The strength of the eggshell method lies elsewhere. It transforms a common household waste into a useful source of recycled calcium, while encouraging gardeners to think about the entire growing system instead of chasing isolated symptoms. That mindset may be the greatest lesson hidden inside this forgotten practice. Healthy gardens are rarely built by adding one miracle ingredient. They are built by understanding relationships. Soil supports roots. Roots move water. Water carries calcium. Calcium strengthens cells. Strong cells produce healthier fruit. Break any link in that chain and problems appear. Strengthen every link, and the entire system becomes more resilient. History quietly confirms this pattern. Long before synthetic fertilizers became common, farming communities survived by recycling nearly everything organic. Wood ash returned minerals to the soil. Animal manures rebuilt fertility. Compost fed microorganisms. Eggshells contributed calcium. Nothing valuable was discarded because every resource eventually found its way back into the land. It was not driven by environmental slogans. It was driven by necessity and observation. Waste represented lost fertility. Today, modern science explains what those growers discovered through experience alone. Calcium contributes to cell wall formation, membrane stability, and healthy plant development. Organic matter supports biological activity. Consistent moisture improves nutrient movement. None of these ideas compete with one another. They reinforce one another. That is why the most successful gardens often appear surprisingly simple. Their success comes from systems rather than shortcuts. The next time you crack an egg, pause for a moment before reaching for the trash. In your hand sits a material that protected life before it ever protected your breakfast. Given the right preparation, it can continue serving another purpose beneath the soil. It will not perform miracles overnight. It will not replace every fertilizer, but it will become part of a larger cycle that transforms everyday leftovers into tomorrow's harvest. That cycle has sustained gardens for generations, and there is every reason to believe it will continue doing so for generations yet to come. I would love to hear about your own experience. Have you ever tried using eggshells in your garden? And what results did you notice? Did this video change the way you think about calcium, watering, or blossom end rot? Share your growing zone and your biggest gardening challenge in the comments, because your questions often inspire future investigations. In our next episode, we uncover why one common household ingredient sitting in millions of kitchens right now has quietly helped growers build healthier roots and stronger harvests for decades. Yet almost nobody thinks to use it before planting. If this story changed the way you look at the waste in your kitchen, please subscribe and like the video. We are unearthing the natural wisdom that modern convenience tried to bury. Let's grow a better future together. The next treasure of the garden will be revealed soon.